in a nutshell, biblically responsible investing is an effort to take the idea that God owns everything and that all that I do is to glorify and honor him very seriously. So if as a famous Bible verse, 1 Corinthians 10:31, whatever you do, whether you eat or drink, whatever you do it all to the glory of God. So if we can eat and drink, eat my oatmeal this morning to the glory of God, certainly I should be able to invest money to the glory of God. And there's some real intentionality that we should put behind that. So that's the basic idea, and in short, how I got into this work so many years ago.
And is part of your approach to say to people, because, as a practical matter, most of us, we are so focused on getting the job done. And for most people, I think the task of making money, occupies most of their time, right? So when they invest, they are typically going to buy some kind of an index fund that might own hundreds of stocks, or a mutual fund that has an assortment of stocks over which they don't have a lot of control. And so how would you say, if I were to come to you and say, well, look, I've got a considerable net worth. I want my investing to be biblically responsible, but I've got this kind of a portfolio. And quite honestly, I neither have the time nor the skills to investigate these companies and know exactly what each of them are doing. How would you steer an investor that wants to be in the harmony that you describe and in the kind of the biblically straight path? How do they get on that path?
Yeah, well, that's my story that I share about in the book, my personal journey. Because here I was, sitting at the desk of the bank, dreading a client come up to me and ask me to place another trade for them in some mutual fund that invests in abortion or pornography or LGBT activist companies or what have you. And I was as dead in the water at Wells. I couldn't do my job with a clean conscience. So long story short, I ended up leaving the bank. Told my wife, hey, honey, I think God's calling us somewhere else. She's like, we got 2 babies and a mortgage. So what's the plan? Less than 2 months of savings in the bank, fully prepared, never to pay my mortgage ever again in my life. Leave all of that behind and start this new firm dedicated to trying to answer that question. So how do we actually go about investing this money that God has given us? We don't just put it under a mattress and wait for Jesus to come back. We're charged to do something with this and make a productive effort for the kingdom of God. And so that was in 2011. That has led me into this business that we have now, Inspire Investing. I won't bore you with all the details that are in the book if you want to go ahead and read that. But we've become from zero to over $3.5 billion in assets that we're managing now, according to biblical principles. It's our 6th year in the Inc. 5000 listing of fastest growing private companies. We've been in the top 3 fastest growing investment firms in the nation. There's a movement of God going on where he's opening the eyes of his people to this huge problem. We're taking his money and putting it into things that are destroying lives, totally antithetical to his will for this earth, right? As the subtitle on Wall Street, as it is in heaven, implies. And we it doesn't have to be that way, right? So we are, my company, Inspire Investing, is an ETF provider of, among other things. So we have investment vehicles that you can buy with ticker symbols like WWJD and PTL and this and that, low cost index-based products that do just as well as their secular counterparts and are sometimes lower cost than some of their secular counterparts. So you can invest just as well in alignment with biblical values in publicly traded companies and still seek to avoid exposures and things that would be deeply antithetical to things that you care deeply about. We're not the moral police here to tell you what those things need to be. I've got my opinions and my convictions. I'm happy to talk with people, but I'm sure something on the list. If you go to our website, inspireinvesting.com, you can click on an Inspire Insight tool, and for free, it can screen your portfolio. Type in a ticker symbol, ETF stock, mutual fund, and just see for yourself what's going on under the hood. This mutual fund in your 401k owns this stock that at this date gave this much money to Planned Parenthood, or makes this abortion drug, or sells this sort of movie. That kind of data that you can make your decision. And so obviously the book has a lot more information about how to go about that, some of the biblical underpinnings of the questions that I wrestled through and how thousands of other people have wrestled through, and how to actually practically go about this process. If we've been convicted in the spirit that, something got to change, what do we do with that? That's what the book's about.
some of these cases look to me to be, pretty much easy cases. So you mentioned the Planned Parenthood, the pornography, but there's a whole shady area, I think, of companies. Let's take hypothetically a big pharma company that is not really too interested in curing people, because if it did, there wouldn't be a market for these drugs. And so what they really want to do is they want people to become obese so that they can give them all kinds of anti-obesity drugs. They want people to get diabetes so they can then treat them. There's a kind of a subtle vested interest on the part. And so you can see where I'm going here. I'm going into areas that are more gray, which it's not that they're flatly violating any biblical prescription, but on the other hand, they are operating maybe in a morally ambiguous territory at best. How do you handle those kinds of hard cases?
It's a great question, and there are some different categories. There are inherently immoral products and services. Abortion drugs have no good purpose on this earth. They're immoral, right, by definition. Pornography, also in that category. Human trafficking and supply chain, some pretty black and white issues that I don't think many people would want to be invested in who are listening to this show, right? And then you have those kind of in between. Maybe they're not completely, just black and white. Maybe it's alcohol for some people. It's an industry that has problems, but in itself is not inherently immoral. You mentioned the drug companies that have a lot of ethical, issues to them that perhaps don't fall into like abortion categories. And then you've got this other category of business that I'll add to the list. Companies that are actually doing a better job than others, being a blessing to the customers, making something that truly is like that drug company that's actually working on something, that's like a biotechnological marvel that is going to improve the lives of millions of people around the world, without hooking them on some nefarious drug, for the rest of their life that's sort of causing all these issues, right? So there's sort of these three categories. And so with our process, we look to exclude the bad actors, the clear bad actors. We just don't invest in them, right? We have a scoring system that you can see online. If a company has a negative score in our Inspire Impact Score process, we just don't invest in those. But then we go on and say, okay, well, with the left, companies that are left, which is 85% of all publicly traded companies in the United States, avoid those egregious issues. How do we choose where to actually allocate capital? And we want to look for those companies that are above average. So if we're looking at drug companies, we're going to say which ones are operating with the highest degree of ethics, making things that are actually adding value to people's lives, not extracting value, that are beneficial, not dangerous, etc. And we score those companies and allocate capital to them. I will say there are another category, LGBT activism, DEI, this whole situation that we've found ourselves in corporate America these days. That can be another gray area. It's a company that is maybe the things they're producing are not inherently problematic, but their corporate practices internally could be very problematic. So what do we do with a company like that? That's where our corporate engagement comes in, and we've gotten more and more out there into the marketplace as far as speaking biblical truth to corporate power, to actually change the way these companies are operating. Most recently, you may have seen in the news, Costco agreed to not sell mifepristone, the abortion drug, in their over 550 pharmacies. That was our shareholder engagement effort. So we kickstarted that over a year ago, and have been working as investors to stop them from going off the deep end, along with CVS and Walgreens, in selling and promoting abortion drugs, which have no place in their pharmacies.
Mike Lindell tells me a major retail chain just canceled a massive order, leaving MyPillow with an overstock of classic MyPillows. So, hey, their loss is your gain. For a limited time, MyPillow is offering their entire classic collection at true wholesale prices. Get a standard MyPillow for just $17.98. Upgrade to queen size for just $22.98, or king size just $24.98. Snag body pillows for $29.98, and versatile multi-use pillows for just $9.98. Plus, when you order over $75, you get $100 in free digital gifts, no strings attached. That's right, premium pillows at unbeatable prices and bonus gifts to top it off. So don't wait. Head to mypillow.com, or you can call 800-876-0227. That's 876-0227. Don't forget to use promo code Dinesh to grab your standard MyPillow for just $17.98 while supplies last.